Hello, everybody. Welcome to Breaking the Silence. You have a voice. I am your host, Lady V, and we have one exciting show for you today. We are going to be talking about, okay, ladies, get ready. What do women really expect out of a man? We talk and we talk and we have
Mm.
all kinds of sideline talk, but we're going to talk about it today on Facebook. So, we want to know if our fantasy is really what the reality is of men, because sometimes we can have expectations and those expectations can be where they can't be met. So we're going to talk about it today, but I want to introduce the rest of our team today. We got our other host, Pastor Melanie Butler. How you doing today?
Doing good, doing
Pretty in
good.
pink.
Thank
We're
you,
celebrating
ma'am.
cancer awareness and we're
That's
all in our
it.
pink. And we have our two guests, wonderful, beautiful guests on our show today. We have Dolores. How you doing, Dee?
Hi.
And we have, and this is one of my favorite people. This is my child, my daughter, my beautiful daughter, Jennifer. How you doing today, Jen? We look just alike.
I know.
So we want to welcome them to the show, and we welcome all of your comments. Put your comments in the box. We'll try to answer any questions that you have, but we want to go ahead and start our show. So, ladies, anybody can start. What do we really expect out of a man? When I was growing up, we had all of the fairy tales. We had the Cinderella story.
Hmm.
We wanted the prince on the horse, and we wanted him to come and sweep us off our feet, and then we wanted him to be a good provider because we were told that men had to be a good provider, and we expected him to buy us everything and treat us like a queen, and the list goes on and on and on. So I want to hear from you. What do we really expect out of a man? Anybody?
That's a very good
Jump in.
question. Me, I expected somebody to love me, to be a good provider, trustworthy, um, good looks, um,
Hmm.
a good father. Did I already say good husband?
No.
Mm-mm.
Good husband, and then somebody who was going to care for me and my children, and also be a family and loving and caring man.
Okay. Okay. Well, do you feel like some of our expectations are, did you feel like, when you met Pastor John, did you feel like your expectations were too high at some point?
No, nope,
No? Okay.
nope, not at
Okay.
all.
Because I think that sometimes, when we talk to different men, especially when they're younger, they say, well, what do you expect out of me? We ask for so much. I want you to go to work. I want you to help with the kids. I want you to help with the house. I want you to tend to me. Make sure you're attentive. Make sure you take care of all my needs. Make sure that you do this, and you got to be patient, and then you got to romance me, and the whole nine yards. And somehow for men, because from what I understand, they're not always the best at multitasking. Maybe our fantasy of what we want them to do and what we want them to be is not always the reality of what we get, which kind of gets a little tricky because then we become frustrated and we tend to slip into mommy mode because now we want to micromanage them and tell them, let me figure you out. Let me snap you
Yeah.
into place. So, Jen, what do you think?
I think first starting out, most women don't know what they want, honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, Going back to the fairy tale, growing up watching Cinderella's and the old Disney movies where the guy comes in, he's the everything. And if I can be candid, if you grow up without a father figure or an example of what a good man is and how a man is supposed to treat a woman, you kind of lean on the fairy tales. So after leaning on the fairy tales and you find out, okay, it's not how like it is in Disney, what do I actually want? And I'll speak for myself. I found out I didn't want to be rescued.
Mm.
The typical damsel in distress, get off me, I ride my own horse, I'm good. But it took time to figure that out, that's not what I actually want. My expectation, like I said, to give credit to some of the cartoons, I like how they evolve. If you look at some of the princess movies now, it's not so much pressure on the prince, but hey, I can be strong within my own right. I can, conquer the world. Matter of fact, the person who saved me was my sister and not the guy. And there's different storylines now, but all in all, I don't think we, in the beginning, know what our expectations are and know what we want. And got to kiss a couple of frogs to kind of figure out how your prince actually looks.
I like that. Because that's so true. A lot of times we want it to be first time around, we find that person and they come in our life and we're like, okay, everybody wants that first one to be it, because that's what the fairy tale tells us. But at the same time, when we get with that person, we really like something Jennifer said, we don't really know what we want. So we kind of hit and miss, and we can't get it together, then it might be a relationship that fails, because we just didn't really know what we wanted. And then we put all of these expectations on the person that we got with without knowing whether or not they can fulfill those expectations. And so now here comes the arguments, here comes the you tripping, you need to be doing this, and this. And then God forbid if he's supposed to be a God-fearing man, because we always gonna throw, you're supposed to be a God-fearing man. And you're supposed to know, we think that because men are Christians, we think that they come with a manual, and they don't. And they don't know what we want, and sometimes they don't know what they want. So it kind of works both ways. How you doing, Pam? I like something that Antoinette said, though. She said women want faithfulness, lover, communicator, have a vision for our future, good husband and father. Yep, that's pretty much what we want. And do we always get that, Dolores?
No. So, so I know when I saw the title of this show, I really, you kind of messed my head up, because I started realizing even now, I think my expectations constantly change. And I know I've gone through a major shift in every decade of my life, from a teenager to married in my 20s, to divorced in my 30s and single again as an adult, to now married, late 30s, and then now married again as a second marriage, former. And my expectations had to shift. My expectations and what I felt I wanted in a man, I realized I had to cut that fat, a lot of fat, not necessarily getting rid of my morals, because some things will not change. Yes, I do believe the man that I am in covenant with will be a man of God and have a relationship with God. And that's just not an option for me personally. But there were other things that I had to shift my thinking, because the older you get, and when you find yourself single in an older woman capacity, some of those options are not quite at your fingertips like they are when you're 19, 20, 21. So yeah, I think that was kind of the best way to answer that.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that the thing is, as we get older, we do change. things that we may have wanted when we were in our 20s. I know when I was in my 20s, I wanted someone who was a good father. I wanted someone who, was I guess purpose driven. And I looked for so much because I realized that I was going to have to raise children with this person. But when it's just you and the other person, your expectations change, especially as you're older. You're like, now I look for someone that wants to travel, wants to have fun, that likes to chill. We don't have children to discuss because the children are grown. So all of those things are eliminated out of the picture. So it makes it a little bit easier because now the focus is more on just the two of you versus you and and him and the children. So your expectations definitely change. But one of the things that I think that women they kind of expect, and I want to talk a little bit about it, is the provision. We look for a provider. We look for men to be good financial providers. And sometimes we have heard that we're not team players when it comes to that. We should be contributors. We should and especially in the dating. So I want to talk a little bit about that because all of us at some point dated, and a lot of times women who are single, we have a hard time, deciding what's right and what's wrong. Are my expectations too high? When we go out to dinner, who pays? When we go here, who does this? What is the rules to the game? Because a lot of times now men are like, well, women can pay too. Women can do this too. Everything is 50-50. Some men think that it should be Dutch. Some men think that women should bring something to the plate as well. So, what do you think? Should it be all on the man, or should it be some on the woman, or how does that go?
So one of my brothers said this to me, and I didn't see it when he said it, and now I'm kind of realizing I didn't see it because I'm married and he's single, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But looking at it, so he said, I never take a woman on the first date to dinner. He said never. He said instead I take them out for coffee, less on my pockets. I can get to know you a little bit more intimately over some coffee. He said, versus we're ordering food, we're doing the most, I'm spending money, because I don't want to ask you to pay. I don't want to go Dutch. We don't want to have that conversation. But a simple cup of coffee. Imagine how long people typically sit in Starbucks and just sit down and talk. Let's have a coffee and pastry. As far as, I believe everyone, whether you're a male or a female, you're going to change throughout your life. I agree with you, Dee. As you get older, things that you want in your 20s, you're not going to want in your 30s, so forth and so on. But there should be non-negotiables in your life. What are your non-negotiables that you will not break at any given point? And some people don't ask themselves that, therefore they don't tell any partners that. So therefore, when someone says something or does something, they're like, well, I don't like that. Well, you never told me that. So for me, I could never, and this is just me, I cannot date a smoker ever. Nothing against them. If you smoke, that's you, boo-boo, but it's because I cannot kiss a smoker. It makes me want to gag. So we're going to go through a long line of you promising you're going to quit, and I'm going to kiss you, and I'm going to flip, and it's just better if we just cut this short right here, sir. But what are your non-negotiables?
So, Jen, but when you were dating, what were some of the things that you expected? Like, did you expect Dan to open the door for you? Did you expect him to? What were your expectations when you were just going through the dating process?
I never really got into, if you open doors, those are cool points. That was not my non-negotiable. Opening doors, chivalry, that's nice. I'm more interested in what's coming out your mouth in conversation. That was more so my thing. You can open the door all day long but be a jerk and say some really jacked up stuff. And I'm like, thank you for being a polite person.
Exactly. We want to take a minute and welcome Dr. Bennett to the show. How you doing, Dr. Bennett?
Hi.
I'm doing well. I'm so sorry I'm late, but
That's
we were
okay.
on the road and we just arrived into Birmingham, Alabama to get ready to attend this funeral. I apologize because
That's
I'm never
okay.
late.
That's okay.
Greetings to
You're
everyone. So nice to see
understand.
everybody.
Greetings. So that's one of the things that, I think that a lot of times has to be established, because I'm a firm believer, how you start is how you're going to finish. So when you start, if I didn't start off expecting him to open the door, or expecting him to carry the bags, or whatever I did or didn't expect, that's pretty much how it's going to go in the relationship. So I think that a lot of times as ladies, we need to first of all establish go back to what is it that we expect. One of the other things is said, we expect, once we get married. So is it wrong to expect him to be the sole provider?
I'm happy you asked that question, of course, but look at how many years ago we've been together. So back when I was dating, it was the guy who would take care of the, pay for. That's what I was always used to. However, and of course, along the way, it would be, yeah, no, I'll treat. But that's how it's always been. But in our relationship from the very beginning, he always said, this is something he told me. He said, my money is our money. Your money is your money.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, okay. However, I appreciate that. But for me, it was what I want to contribute to the relationship, what I want to bring to the table as well. But when I was dating, I'll never forget, y'all, I didn't even know what the term Dutch meant. and we were, y'all, I promise you, I didn't know what Dutch meant. And so me and this guy, we were going out. He said, yeah, you want to go out to eat? And I was like, yeah. But I was a college student as well. And he said, okay, but we got to go Dutch. And I was like, okay, what is Dutch? Not knowing I pay for me and you pay for you. But it ended up, I guess he felt bad. And I don't even know if we went out to eat that evening, but it was just funny because I didn't know what that term meant. And I grew up in a GI town. So it was, you had your college students and then you had your GIs. So most of the time the GIs did pay. So I didn't really deal with that a whole lot, but when Pastor and I was dating, yes, but pretty much most of the time he always did the paying.
So,
the same with us. The same with us.
I think that a lot of times when, even today, because I hear a lot of men say they don't have a problem being a provider, but it's all the other things that come along with it. We want to, I want you to, I think at some particular time, Jennifer can correct me, because that was one of the songs that she used to like, pay my telephone bill, pay my automobile bill. And it just came with a whole bunch of stuff. And the guys were like, wait a minute, because a lot of times now women come with, I want you to get my nails done, get my feet done, I want you to buy me Gucci, I want you to buy all of these things. And it goes back to, now my fantasy is it his reality, because I don't think that is that men don't want to be good providers, but I think that a lot of times, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, it's all of the things that we expect them to do that's above and beyond being a provider, because it's one thing to provide, it's the other thing to, I want, and I don't want to contribute anything to the table because this is what I want. So I think that that's something that, kind of throws everything off, because we expect so much, So what about, let's talk about the working man. So I'm gonna say that all of us expect a man to work, right? That yeah, okay. We're all in agreement to that. So what about what we expect him to do and work?
What
Are we
was the question?
I don't.
what about all of the other things we expect him to do? We expect him to cook, we expect him to clean, we expect him to help with the kids.
Well, but see that
Well, I
go
think
ahead,
some
D.
things, I think some things just come, just work out between the two of you. I don't think that a mother should ever have to ask a dad to keep his children. I think that should be a mutual thing. If there's nothing planned, I'm going to the hair salon today, so I'm going to leave, the kids with you, blah, 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 stuff like that. But to get back to something Lady V said with regard to I want. I think a lot of times people have women, some married women as well as single women, they have an expectation that is without reason. If you like Gucci and if you like, brand name, you like designer and so forth and so on, I think it's nice when a man buys you a gift and so forth and so on. But I don't think it's fair for a man to have to meet those expectations all the time. Now, if he's able, then that's good. But there are a lot of women that apply that pressure. They won't accept a gift from a certain place where I like Gucci, where I like this. Then you should be in a position to purchase that for yourself.
Mhm.
For yourself. I don't think you should apply that kind of pressure to a spouse demanding it because maybe number one, especially if you can't afford it, but sometimes they don't think, they look at what you wear and so forth and so on. I mean, I have friends that know what their wives like and they just, when they buy gifts, they buy those expensive things. But I don't think it should be a demand. I really don't. I think if that's what you like, then if you want to keep up that lifestyle, then you should do it. I mean, I'm married 57 years and I just know, and let's throw this in. Some men just don't know. I don't care how much they see you wear. My husband knows I like the finer things of life, but can promise you he's not going to go and buy me a Louis Vuitton because he don't know to do that. He just don't. So if it means that much to me, then I should be able to go and purchase it or suggest it to him. But he's just not going to just up and say it. And a lot of women feel, you see what I like. It just don't come like that to all men. And I think it's unfair.
So when you say that, because I think it was something Jennifer was getting ready to say, I'm gonna let her complete her. What was your thought, Jennifer?
Oh no, I said D had her hand up. D
Oh, go ahead,
won.
D.
The usher won.
Go ahead.
Well, I think I'm a little different.
It sounds really muffled.
Okay, go ahead, D.
Okay, I'm a little different with my mindset with
Can anybody
financial.
else hear that? It sounds muffled.
Yeah, we can hear.
We can hear. Go ahead, D.
With my financial expectations. See, again, I was married previously 16 years.
I can't hear her.
Where we had I don't.
Go ahead, D.
Okay, where I had nothing. I was in the military. I got out the military. We had a child at the time, and he was like an E4 trying to raise a wife and a child, all on a E4 salary. And I had to constantly ask permission. Can I buy this? Can I get that? Or he would buy for me. Now, at the time, I respect the situation, but I grew a little irritated as a woman because my father and where I grew up in the state of Massachusetts, you work for a career, you go for college. So I had this view of my life as a young kid that I'm gonna be in a corporate office making certain type of money. So by the time I got married, currently, I didn't need my husband to provide for me. I mean, and I don't say this out of disrespect for him. When I married him, I needed love and love alone. I didn't need your money. He could walk out right now and I'll be okay financially. That's just how I am. I set my life up that way. But my husband will take the clothes off of his back with whatever he brings to the table to contribute to the family that we've created. And that's all I ask for. I think I kind of speak for women sort of in their second phase of life where everything, we were two households combining into one. I've got almost 20 years of life and he's got 40 something years of life combining with each other, and now we're trying to become one. So the finances, I mean, to be honest with you, I do more overspending than him, and it's my money, and he's like, hey, you need to chill. And I'm buying silly things like McDonald's and stuff. He wants me to get the name brand things, and I'd rather go in Ross and drop a cool 500 there. And he's like, stop buying that cheap stuff. But I mean, but
I was gonna say it just depends on, once again, go back to where your non-negotiables are. What are your expectations? Because if it is money, I have a friend. She in the same boat. She has her own private practice. She's a doctor. She makes more than enough money. Her thing was, I need somebody who loves me. I need somebody that gives me peace. Money I have. I have buckets of it. And so she married a painter. And to the rest of us, we're like, a painter? And she's like, I like his paintings. Whatever floats your boat. If that's what you're agreeing upon, if that's your standard, that's your expectation. So there's nothing, I think in 2021, because women have more opportunities to get just as good, if not better jobs than some of the men. It's not so much providing, it's more so contributing.
Yeah.
And even with contributing, sometimes I'll be one to even say it doesn't always have to be monetary. What are you giving back to this? Like, yes, I can work in the military and make money. I can't come home and give myself a hug. I could, but it feels better when you give me one. So just what are you
my husband, the same thing. I used to play with him all the time, and to this day, and I'm like, do you know how much money you save me? He'll cut the grass. I haven't cooked since 2014. This man cooks. He loves to cook. He's just a cook. I don't expect it. He just loves it. He builds things, repairs things in the house. So there's a lot that I don't have to pull from our resources to maintain, because he's gifted in that area, which is more than I could ever expect. And also, we both serve in the ministry together. That is like mind-blowing to me. I never thought that I could look to the side and see my helpmeet there giving me the heartbeat of something that I do, which is, sing to God. And it's just that in and of itself is just an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I think too, in a relationship, especially when you get together and as husband and wife, I think you all getting together and deciding this is what the finances are going to be. What are the expectations in our marriage, in the relationship? Okay, because I do know some relationships where they split everything 50-50. 50-50. You pay this, I pay that. That has never been our relationship. But the expectation was, he was always, I'm the provider. I'm going to pay, I'm going to pay for this, I'm going to pay for that, and then it was times where my money, it would pay for, other things. Absolutely. And so you definitely have to decide exactly what it is that you two want to do, how you all are going to contribute to the relationship to definitely help that out. And it's so funny because when I was in the workforce, and it was two women who were dating, and they were in a long-term relationship, and one, she was like, I don't
pay for, I don't really pay for anything. She contributed to the relationship. And at that time, they were not married. She was like, I contributed to the relationship. And then the other one was like, oh, well, we split everything 50-50, and she ended up purchasing a house. And I was like, whatever you do, y'all are dating. Don't put his name on that. I'm like,
Yeah.
y'all are dating. Whatever you do, don't
Right.
you do it. Absolutely not. And so she was like, well, what am I doing wrong? But it's how you start in the relationship. And then there could be times where you start in the relationship, but your goals and different things change, right? They may shift. They may change. And because they change, then that's where you have to get together. Okay, let's reevaluate. This is what we need to start doing or stop doing.
Right.
Exactly.
I always need a commitment to growth. That's one of my expectations.
Right.
You have to be committed to growing. You can't be stagnant. That's
Right.
just one of mine.
Right. And
Exactly.
I think you should. I think it's unfair for a wife to feel, that it's up to him to do everything. And there are, of course, necessities and so forth and so on. But I don't see anything wrong with when you go out to dinner. Like I tell my husband, there are times when I'll say, let's not. I don't want to cook tonight. Let's go out to eat. And if I want to pay, he never wants me to pay, but I just feel that it's okay. It's okay for you to pay. It's okay for you to go out and buy. You see, you need a new chair. It's all right for you to go out and buy that new chair. You shouldn't have to sit there and wait for him to replace that chair. I think it's like you said, Pastor Melanie, it's the way you start. And that's the way we started. We started, look, if you see something that needs to be done, hey, you got the opportunity to just do it. And keep it.
One of the things too, for the people watching that might be in a similar situation as me, one thing I always was reminded from God to do when I married Lamont was no matter what decision I make, he's part of the process. It's not about
That's right.
who makes the money, who doesn't make the money, and this, that, and the other. He's my husband. He's still, in my belief, head of the household, regardless, and no matter what major, like big purchase, like I said, I'll go to Ross and whatever I come home with, but big purchase, furniture, a house, a car,
Right.
actually he was the main contributing factor as to why we have what we have now, so I never forget when we dated. One day he snapped at me because I was saying something, and he snapped and said, "Stop acting like a man." And I was like, "Ooh, you are right." Let me get dainty for you. You know what I mean? Because I had to. I didn't realize I was doing that. Sometimes we, especially Black women, can we're so independent. We can. What's it called? Emasculate a man.
Emasculate.
Emasculate a man. And so you also want to make sure that you're careful with that if you love this man.
Right. That's right.
So what about the expectation of romance? Because a lot of times women, they expect the man to be the romance person. They expect him to one of the things that I noticed, and I think we talked about this on the earlier shows, but when Valentine's Day comes and all of those holidays that revolve around love, it tends to gear more towards the woman than the man. When we look at weddings, we always look at the bride. We don't ever include the groom. When we look at the love aspect, the colors are always pink, they're red, they're pretty, but we don't ever look at the whole love factor of romance being a mutual thing. So how does the romance work? You know, because a lot of times it goes back to, I think, our fantasy versus the reality. And we expect all the time the romance comes from the man. He should buy me flowers. Well, do we buy him flowers? He should buy me this. Well, do we do that? He should be the initiator, but do we initiate? So how does that work? You know, because a lot of times we can put those expectations, you know, in the romance area on him, and not realizing that he may be expecting some stuff from us too.
That's true.
Sometimes we have to be the initiator. And one thing I also learned early in the relationship, what the things that he was not doing, I became.
That's right.
Mhm.
So I taught by being that example. And then because a
Yeah.
lot of times that's what you can do. You can be that example, and then they're like, oh, okay, catch on. And then that's when they become what you want, what you are teaching and showing them. So there are times where we can initiate it to teach them and to show them, because sometimes we have our own way of thinking of what romance looked to each and every one of us. So if this is how I want to be romance, well, let me romance him this way to show him and teach him, oh, he got it. So now when it's time for him to do the romance, and oh, he got it, because why? I taught him.
And we also have to learn to praise progress. That's something. It
Yes.
took me a minute to learn that. I used to always, now I got away from the Disney movies, but that didn't mean I wasn't looking at the Billy D type movies. And I'm like, oh, look at that smooth brother. Look at Morris Chestnut. Look at that. And it took me a minute to really like think about, these are written lines. This is not his words.
Right.
This ain't a real scene. This is lighting, makeup.
Cut.
Amen. Cut. We gonna
Yes.
read you this line. I want you to look into the camera, lick your lips, and say this to her. And I had to get out of that. Like, okay, my husband is not going to. My husband's an IT tech. He's gonna talk tech, so he's not gonna be Billy D. He's not. But and like you said, Pastor, teaching, when he attempts to be smooth, I have to praise him and be like, you know what,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
see you, okay. Because
Yeah.
if not, I'll discourage him and he'll be like, well,
Yes.
that didn't do nothing but make me feel funky.
And also
Right.
good, and that's good. And also, Pastor Melanie said, teach him. A lot of times, I think the romance on the husband side is not initiated because the wife is not showing the desire.
No, boo!
Look, and
You're not allowed to do that.
We're trying to show out.
Did I get them wrong? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We hear you.
Oh. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
Oh, I was saying, I don't know what that was, but I was saying that a lot of times women don't show the desire
Mhm.
That's
her
right.
because she's waiting for him to initiate. And a lot of men could take that. She don't even desire me, so why bother?
Yeah.
I
So
was
it's
like that.
you
Mhm.
need to show what you want. What you want, you give. You
Mhm.
That's right.
like rose petals put down. You put down rose petals for him. If you like certain things as far as attire, then pick up something and show him. Just show him what you like. And they do catch on. They really, really do. But
They
I
do.
do that a lot of women, and especially older women, they don't show that they have that desire for their husband anymore. So it's like, why bother?
Mhm.
Yeah. And
That's
also
true.
if he cares about you, and he's, also I want to add this in here. I remember being young and in my early years married, and I would have these type of conversations and be part of these discussions. And I remember that I would try to do just that. and it wouldn't work, because this is where you have to know your mate. You also have to know them, because when I would advance, it was a turnoff for some strange reason. I don't know if he was taught that. I don't know, but it seemed like you may have some old-fashioned men that do want to be the initiator and the initiator alone. But you know, I'm fortunate with my husband today. I never really had to get into the teaching aspect. You know, I think prayer works, especially for those divorcees out there and you're looking for your next husband. Let me tell you, prayer works. If you write down what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you want, because God gave me just that, you know. And I don't ever, it's like the massages, that kiss that Pastor dropped on Pastor Mel comes right on time, you know, just when you really need it the most. It's like he's astute to my needs and emotions.
And it's crazy that you say that. Go ahead.
One of the things that I realize is a lot of times we think that I think it's our delivery, because a lot of times when we want something, we got to know how to say it, and sometimes doing it is better than just sitting down and saying, okay, I want XYZ, because a lot of times then, and we've all been guilty of it, we slip into mommy mode. You know, we slip into where they'll say, I don't think that there's too many men that won't say, you know, you sound like my mom
or your mom,
because when we were younger, we just really thought, I got to tell him to do this. I got to tell him. And I know for me, the biggest thing was the housework and the kids. You know, I want you to do this, and this, not realizing that a lot of times they don't want to even participate in parenting, because when they have the children, they may not do what we do, you know. And that was something that I had to learn. You know, what do you care if you're going out for the day with the girls or whatever? What do you care if they eat peanut butter and jelly 3 times a day? They're eating. You don't have to call every 5 minutes and ask them, well, what did the kids eat? If they got their shoes on backwards, you don't care, because you know what?
Right.
You are having a break. But I think that a lot of times, because we have a system and we know that this is what we do, it's like, okay, he should do this too. But men are tailored sometimes differently. They don't think to do the things that we do. So we have to, Jennifer said it, you have to learn to applaud them when whatever they do. Oh my God, he has his shoes on. Girl, I'm not even looking at the baby. Got no socks and shoes on backwards. He just got some shoes on. Look at him. He looks so cute. What you eat today? Dad just gave me a piece of bread and some water. What you ate? That is so great. You know, because a lot of times we got to look at the fact that he made an effort. Now, sometimes you got to be a contributor. We got to, if we see that he need a little help, you know, maybe next time we put some beefaroni. Baby, I put some beefaroni in the D's lab. I'm serious. You know, I put some beefaroni so you know you can add it to that bread and water, because a lot of times they just don't think. They're just thinking, I got the child. You know, don't really matter. You know, you always see the funny daddy shows. Dads don't know a lot of things like moms know exactly how we do, but we don't care as long as they have their own little way of showing love and affection. So when they do things, we got to learn to recognize it. And something else I just wanted to add on to what Jennifer said. We can't compare him to the guy on the TV.
That's right.
Is play.
That's
okay.
Right.
Script.
You see the big buff guy, and everybody want to. I wish you was like Morris Chestnut, and I wish you was like what's the guy? And I wish you was Denzel Washington. Okay, wait a minute. But then
Morris Chestnut ain't like Morris Chestnut.
Right, but then when he starts saying, "Well, okay, I want you to be like Beyonce, and I want you to be like, you know, this person," then we get upset. We have to allow our men to be who they are and not
Right.
be in our fantasy world, because a lot of
Right.
times our fantasy is not his reality. He goes, Jennifer said, Dan's an IT tech, Pastor John is Pastor John, Bishop is Bishop, and these husband is these husband, but we can't take them and make them and mold them
Exactly.
into what
And,
we want them to be.
and you
And
know,
I
it's
would like,
not,
go ahead, go ahead.
and it's not good to do that because
We can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you.
hear me? Can you hear me
Now
now?
we can. Now we can.
Not to just, it's good to applaud them and praise them, because a lot of times, a lot of husbands, all they get is what I didn't do.
Right.
And it's so easy to say to a man, and a lot of times that cuts off the romance. If a man is always shot down, you can rest assured he's going to go into cocoon mode, because you can't. He's afraid. He's afraid to say anything. So it's good to praise him, and like Lady V said, you have to make an effort sometimes to show them to add on something, and it's nice. And that comparing that man to somebody else, like a lot of people do, a lot of women do. Oh, I wish my husband were like Denzel. Or I wish, well, maybe he wished that you were like Beyonce, or like this one, or like that one. Don't ever compare. It's not good. We're all individuals, and let's work out what we have to please one another. And it works a lot better.
I like what Dee said. It does take prayer, because one of the traits that I for the longest I could not stand about my husband is procrastination. And I used to pray to the heavens, God, take it out of him, rebuke it, Jesus, get it out. And God spoke to me and said, your worst trait and his worst trait offset each other. He's a procrastinator, but you're impatient. And when I put you two together, you actually function.
Yeah.
And it was a humbling experience. I'm the impulse person. Oh, that car is pretty. Let's buy it now. And then,
Right.
like, it's been in
Right.
3 accidents. The
Mm.
wheel is about to come off. And I'm like, but it turns on, right? And so,
And it's pretty.
and it's pretty. It's the first thing I'm going to tell you. It's pretty. That's all I care about. So in praying, I found that one of my so-called expectations, well, I don't want him to be a procrastinator. It's actually the trait that I need to kind of round me out a little bit and say, okay, yes, I push him, give him a little bit of spunk to move, but at the same time, he pulls me back and says, okay, Jennifer, don't go tell the car dealership we're willing to pay full price. Don't, just be quiet. Don't smile. I've actually had that happen before. I can't come to dealerships with my husband. The dealership
And
automatically
the
knows.
thing is, and also in this will help ladies, because I'm not married yet. I am newly engaged. Yay. But in being in a fresh relationship, especially as an older woman, you gotta have some chill. A lot of times we don't know how to chill. We wanna tell a man how to be. I don't know how to be a man. We don't know. You want to tell a man how to be a man, but you're not a man. Well, if you need to do it this way, and you need to do. A lot of times we think that he needs us to tell him what to do, and we don't. And that is one of the major things that we feel like we have to do in order for men to function. But a lot of times we don't realize that they're figuring it out. They watch us too. Derek always says to me, you got to read the book. And I love that. He's like, you got to read the book. I'm reading the book along the way. So every time I think, okay, well, what's this? He's like, I'm reading the book. I got it, because we think that they're not, because we think that they're not paying attention. But a lot of times they are. We just gotta be patient. And that's what Jennifer's saying. A lot of times we're just so impatient. We want them to get it right now. But it may not always be a right now thing where, what we're expecting is going to come. And we just have to continue to be patient, graceful. Our words need to be sweet, because when they're not, then we don't get sweet back. We want sweet.
You got that right.
We give out bitter, and we want them to be like this, and we're all the way up here. So I think that, and that's one of the other expectations. What about communication? Because we say, well, we want him to be assertive. We want him to communicate. We want a man that communicates. But a lot of times we over communicate and we don't let him communicate, because we always have looking past Melanie. You know what I'm saying?
No, because let me tell you, it's the opposite for us.
We always got to have the last word, the first word, the middle word.
It's opposite for us, because I'm more of the quiet one. He's the talker.
Yeah.
So there's times he has to pull out of me. I don't have to pull out of him, but he has to pull out of me. So it's times where because I will internalize a lot of things, and I have to wait for the right moment. And two, I learned this early in our marriage, because before it was a tit for tat, the communication, it was both guns were always loaded. But then I learned how to scale back and process it here before I let it come out of here. Because once it comes out of here, it's not pretty. It's not pretty.
I have a question.
And it can be very hurtful. Yes, ma'am.
Right. And it's not what you say, like Lady V said before, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's all about your presentation. And if your attitude is not on point at that moment, it's best to be silent. It's just best to be silent.
So I have a question. Is looks an expectation?
Yes.
Because sometimes for men,
Yes.
looks is an expectation.
Yes.
I have to watch my face.
I know men that will tell you, just keeping it real, I'm not into that. So for ladies, for women, is that an expectation for us?
When you say looks, are you talking about how a man looks?
I'm talking about from the beginning to the end, because a lot of women, it almost seems like it's the cliche. When we talk about looks, we're superficial. But when they talk about looks, it's understandable, because they say men are visual. Is it okay to say that?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that looks, a lot of times men think that, because I've always heard it, well, men are visual. Okay. So I'm going to say it on Facebook for the world to hear. Women are visual too.
Yes, we are.
We just don't go and look for some home Joe on the block. We are visual as well. And visual means, we want to see, a groomed man. We want our men to stay groomed. We want them to cut their hair. We know this everything, because we are detailed, and we're probably more detailed than men are. So when I hear people say, well, men are visual, I'm like, well, what are we, blind? No, we see everything. Now, a lot of times we won't say anything, but
correct.
And that's very important, because a lot of times we won't say, well, hey, are you going to shave? You're going to do this? You're going to do that?
You growing a belly.
Because they don't think that we're visual. They think that, okay, we're just, I don't know, Good Housewives. I don't know what but we are. And I'm grateful, because I have someone that, is definitely picky about how they look, and as well as you all. But when I hear men say it, it's like, I hate that saying, is men are visual, women are not. We are visual. We care about how your breath smells. We care about your feet, your nails, your teeth, your beard, everything is very, very important to us. How you dress, all of those things, how you smell, all of those things are very, very important to us, ladies. Am I right?
I know for me,
and you should start that off. You should start off with that. I mean, that's part of the dating process, the getting to know process. But what you tolerate, you cannot change. And a lot of times people tolerate that from the onset of their relationship. They know that, this man is not the type of person to change his wardrobe and go into a different style, or to keep his toenails cut, go for a pedicure. There's nothing wrong with men going for pedicures. I like nice feet too. I don't want crust rubbing upside of me. And no, I'm not that kind of person. But I think when you start out that way, during the journey, it's a lot easier. Midstream, now it's where have you been? Who have you been touching? Who have you been looking? Who have you looking at? Who have you been listening to? I think it's the way you start. You have to start off like that, for real.
So I know
Sister
for
D.
me at 36 years old, 37 years old, to find myself back on the dating scene, the looks, I'm kind of speaking on the looks. I again, expectation had to change. I couldn't expect a teenage physique or a young 20s physique like I had back in those days for a man who's a grandfather. Men
That's
go
good.
through hormonal changes.
That's
Jen,
good.
I'm sorry you talked about bellies, but sometimes you're going to have to just love on that belly if that man's going to love you. Get hurt. You get hurt good enough. That stuff to me is superficial because just like a woman, a man or a woman, we can go to the gym, we can change ourselves.
Okay.
You can go to the doctor and get stuff sucked up, tucked up, whatever.
So now
does that change your heart? Does that change
let me ask you
how
a question. I'm gonna ask another question. So then let's put this in the box. Is sex a good expectation? Is that superficial? Should we love regardless on how sex is, especially being married?
See, this a part two. This a part two.
Yeah, but we only got 4 minutes, so that may be a part 2. And not to mention, go ahead. Somebody want
That's a big part.
That's a big part.
It's a big
That's
part.
a big
It's
part.
A big part.
Yeah.
But once again, you have to be open, and
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Got cut off
again.
There
And
you go.
what you looked for 20 years ago is you have a different take right now, because if you think about it, you don't look like you looked 20 years ago either. And I think that's one of the things you have to throw in there. But once again, make sure you start out like you want to end up. If you have a problem with a man having a belly, then you don't even look that way, because that belly may not go away. If anything, it's going to get bigger. Okay, so you have to make sure that this is something you can deal with. So when it comes to sex, you have to talk about it. You have to let a man, and there's nothing wrong with letting a person know. I deal with a lot of women in my field, and women are suffering because they never had the gall to say to a man, this don't feel good. You have to tell him, because he don't know. It's not his body, it's your body. And I think it's unfair to a man for a woman not to share that with him. And then he goes along doing the same thing for 15 years and so forth and so on, and you never said anything. Now, one day you strike out and say, I want to let you know that I never liked that. Why didn't you say that? It's okay.
And also,
it
men
really
go through hormonal changes too. Things shift and change. You may not last as long as you used to.
I can't hear you, ladies.
Back in the day, or vice versa. So as you get older, again, you adjust according to where you are. You adjust according to where you are at the time, and you got to know your partner.
I think that goes back to the communication.
Exactly.
Right. It does because that's a part of the relationship, because if you do something that he doesn't like, prayerfully he'll tell you, and vice versa. That's the part of that's that communication. That's where that communication is, honey. Sit down. We need to have a talk. We need to have a talk. So let us talk, and I need to be open and honest, because a lot of times as soon as we say we need to talk, y'all, that wall is up. And guess what? Defense mode. It's like, okay, I'm ready. You have to decide, this is a moment where we need to talk, we're being honest and letting it out. And it's all, and like you said, it's how it is said. It's how it is said,
Exactly.
and making sure it's being said in love.
Well, this has been an awesome show, ladies. Now, I want to let everybody know that are our viewers, because next week we're going to ask the men the same question. And I think they are ready. They are ready. So this, we have been talking about today, this, you've been watching Breaking the Silence, and we have been talking about what women really expect out of a man. Is our fantasy really their reality? And we have had some awesome people on the show today. I am your host, Lady D. We have Dr. Yvonne Bennett, Pastor Melanie Butler, and our two wonderful, beautiful special guests, Jennifer and Dee. I want to thank you for coming on the show today. And we are going to continue relationship rules on next week. But until then, always remember, you have a voice. See you next week.
Bye. Bye.